My name is Allie, and I'm the host of Funny Fat Friend, a podcast about this bodacious biracial babe trying to find herself in film. If you have listened to this podcast at all, you are aware that I really fucking love watching movies. If you have never listened, welcome. Also, a bold move, starting with part 2. I like... whatever works, you know? I'm not gonna rain on your parade, but yeah. I really fucking like watching movies. So this weekend, we have what some would call the biggest night in film, which is the Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars. As you may know from the part 1, unless you are the one new person listening only to part 2, in high school, I started watching all of the Best Picture nominees each year. And last year, I expanded into watching every film nominated for every single category, and I have continued this challenge into this year, and now that I have this podcast, I figured I'd talk about the Oscars because it made sense, and I could not possibly compute any more films than what I was already watching. If you're interested in short reviews of all 57 nominated films, you can check out the pinned story on my Instagram. I am at Allie.the.g, so Allie the G, on Instagram. And you can find it right there. It says Oscars. It says Oscars 2021. God damn. And it says Oscars 2021. And I even have my reviews from last year's Oscars still up there too, because like, why not? So if you wanted to know about those, if you want to check out the past, all of those films, I did those too. And you can watch all of those reviews. Cool. Yeah. So in this part 1, I went through and gave what I thought should have been the Best Picture winners for every single year since my birth. And this week, I'm going to be discussing all of this year's Best Picture nominations. So let's do it. This year, there were only 8. As I talked about in part 1, they used to only do like 5 every year, and then in the early 2000s they switched, they doubled it to 10, and then this year it's 8. Because I assume it was because there were less films, but also there were some films that I watched from other categories that should have been nominated for Best Picture. But who am I, okay? I'm just a girl with a podcast. All right, anyway, let's just do it. Okay. First up, I'm not doing these in any particular order. Well, I kind of am, but it's not best to worst or worst to best. But there is like a method to my madness at one point. But yeah, so these are in nearly no particular order. First up is The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman. Hopkins plays an aging man dealing with memory loss, and Colman plays his daughter, who is trying to care for him through his rapid mental change. The film is mainly shown through Hopkins' character's perspective, so things in the apartment as you're watching, change. Like the decor, even the actors playing some of the people that he knows change throughout the film because it is mirroring what he sees in his reality. The screenplay was written by Florian Zeller and Christopher Hampton, and it's based on Florian Zeller's play La Pere. I think that's right. I like all of the difficult names. I listened to pronunciations over and over and over and tried to get them right. If I get them incorrectly, I fiercely apologize. I'm trying very hard because all of these things deserve to be called the right names. Okay, so yeah, that was his play. Zeller also directed the film, and you can tell, at least in my opinion, that it was like originally a play. Mainly with like the cinematography and the framing of scenes and the like production design itself literally looks like a play on a stage. It looks like a set. And the use of like stationary shots give you the feeling of being in the audience and like unable to move around with the characters all the time. And yeah, I think it really works in hand with Hopkins' character feeling disconnected to me. So obviously this is a heart-wrenching and deeply human film, and I loved it a whole lot. And I didn't know anything about it going into it. I saw that it was nominated. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go watch it. And I saw it had Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins, so I was like, oh, it's gonna be great. And of course it was, but man, I had no clue going in what to expect at all. I saw it in the theater. This was maybe the only one I saw in a theater. No. Nope, it is. I think it's the only one I actually saw in the theater. And I really liked the experience of seeing it on the big screen. I think it added a connection that may have been hard to replicate on a smaller screen, but I think would still be really amazing. I think it's the immersive element of it, of course, like when you're in a theater, but you can recreate that for yourself. It's really just about the person for that sort of thing. But oh man, there was a man sitting behind me in the theater. There were only 3 people in the showing that I went to, and there was a man like behind me somewhere, and he started crying at the end, like weeping. I could hear him, and that's what made me start crying. But if he hadn't started crying, I don't think I would have been moved to tears. So if you don't like to cry at a film, it's probably like it's possible that you're gonna avoid it. But it is like tough, and it's something that a lot of people can relate to, especially as like if you're getting older, if you're a person that is growing up. I don't know that a teen might connect with it, but just like being an adult in the world, and like my grandparents raised me, and so now they're getting older, and I'm having to think about like we need to take care of them. Like they're not as like able to take care of themselves as fully as they once were. So having to think about that and having tough conversations about like Alzheimer's is in our family and that sort of thing is like very real. And so watching this was really tough, and it's just so stellar though. It is so beautiful. It's also nominated for Best Actor, obviously, Best Supporting Actress, obviously, Film Editing, obviously, Adapted Screenplay, of course, and Production Design. I agree on all fronts. Also, apparently, the writers, Florian Zeller and Christopher Hampton, already are writing a sequel type film called The Sun, I'm pretty sure. I think that's what I read. And so that's gonna be fucking... oh my god. Right? Okay. Next up. Next film we have is Mank. It's starring Gary Oldman as screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz, who developed and wrote the screenplay for Citizen Kane. It's a fucking history year for the Oscars, apparently. Like, all the films, for the most part, are about historical events or the past. I don't know that there's anything that is like... Well, yeah, there is. I'm wrong. I can't think for things. But yeah, there are a lot of histories, though. So... yeah, I don't really want to talk about this one. Honestly, I didn't like almost any of it. It felt like it was 3 hours long. The film style and cinematography were cool. It was shot in the styles of a 1940s film like Citizen Kane, which was like a neat idea. But in practice, like in reality, they were still using high definition cameras. So it just felt very weird, juxtaposed with like the cheesy fades and like the framing. And I will commend the sound designer, because they definitely deserve a pat on the back for creating, like, they recreated the weird, like, tinny sound that most films had back then. Like, people were talking inside of a radio, or, like, in, like, a literal, like, can of fucking baked beans. But again, why? Like, you didn't have to do the whole thing like that. Like, it would have been a neat idea for like a short or like an hour-long Ken Burns special. That would have been sick. This would have been great, you know? Maybe like just like a little mini thing. But a whole film was too fucking much. They stretched this bitch out. Like, there was not enough material for them to do this. They had to use so many, like, flashbacks and adding other shit in and stretching out these tensions. Sorry, I just burped, and I'm probably not going to edit it out. And so, if that bothered you, I'm sorry. But, yeah, it was too much for me. I didn't like it. Also, Gary Oldman was accused of domestic abuse and defended Mel Gibson's anti-Semitic tirade back in the day and said that men can't just get away with bad jokes anymore. So, like, fuck that guy, right? He's nominated yet again for Best Actor, which he just won 2 years ago. Which, of course, well, the Mel Gibson thing is not alleged. He literally did that. The domestic abuse is alleged, of course. But to even, in these times, to not believe a woman, like, if you're in a situation where you are accused, like, we need to at least take a sec to unpack and maybe discuss this a bit more. Especially, he wore, like, a Me Too pin at the last fucking Oscar. I can't, you know? Like, it's not dealt with enough for me. And I'm just a viewer. I know that I do not get a say in this at all. But I fucking believe women. I'm sorry. My bad. Anyway, let's just... Fuck that guy. Okay. Amanda Seyfried is in it. Seyfried? Seyfried. I'm pretty confident in Seyfried. And she's really fun. She was like one of the best things about the film. And she's nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Okay, cool. It's also nominated for Best Director, Best Original Score, which was Trent Reznor, you know, the guy from 9 Inch Nails, and Atticus Ross, who I do not know. He also, Trent Reznor, has said terrifying things about women in his songs, but luckily, you know, it's all just orchestration here, so I guess we didn't have to deal with that. Honestly, I didn't hardly notice the score while I was watching it. I had to go back when I saw that it was nominated for Best Score. I went back and, like, listened to the album. And it's okay. Like, it's nothing that I can remember. I can't hum a piece of it to you. I can't remember any motifs from it. I don't know. It was just, like, generic old movie orchestration. So, but I guess that's the point. So cool. Nominated for Best Sound? Yes, I'm down for that. Best Cinematography? It is very creative, but I guess also kind of not creative. It's just an homage, so I don't know. I don't feel confident enough about cinematography to really critique it that hard, so I'm not gonna, because I know my place. Best Production Design, that makes complete sense. They did recreate old Hollywood, and it was fucking cool. The sets were fucking dope. Give them props deserved. Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling. Yeah, it's a thing about the past. Yeah, so yeah, it gets the nom. Because that's hard. We don't just have that stuff around. You have to try really hard. You got to do a lot of research. You got to be very skilled. Yes, give them their fucking awards. They deserve it. So yeah. This film overall is just a further testament to the fact that the Academy really just loses itself over itself. Like, films about filmmaking, fucking get them there, alright? I don't think it should have gotten this many nominations, and definitely not Best Picture, but here we are in Fuckeryville. Which is kind of a joke, because it opens and they talk about Victorville and whatever. If you watched it, you would have got it. But don't watch it. It's not worth it for understanding my joke. Okay. Next. Next up is Promising Young Woman, starring Carey Mulligan as Casey Thomas, who is a 30-year-old woman who seeks to avenge the death of her best friend, who was a victim of rape while they were in medical school together. I think that this is an incredibly well-made film. Also, that synopsis obviously is like not enough. It was really hard to not write a lot about any of these films because I do not want to spoil them at all. I do not want, like, well, some of them I want to, like, push you away from watching. But, you know, I want to, like, critique what I can where I can without it being a dick move of spoiling. So, yeah. Anyway, I think this is an incredibly well-made film. Like, it's beyond very well-made. It is incredibly well-made. Every piece of it was worked on so much and so thought out, and it's so labored, like, you can see it. It's impeccably made. Sexual assault and harassment are a reality for most women in the world, if not all. Yet there are few films that take the subject matter to task. It makes sense since the majority of the film space is male-dominated, right? That we don't have a lot of these films. My critiques of the film have to do with the audience more than anything else. And that's not like literally the people watching it, the audience, but like who the film is made for, which obviously I talk about a lot on our podcast. Whoa. I watched it twice. I didn't think I was going to. On my second watch, which again I didn't expect to be doing or like to even be able to do after watching it the first time. But on the second watch, I felt even more alienated by it. I'm used to films not being for me, right? Like, obviously, that's this podcast. But I was hopeful toward this film in a way that I am usually not, and it let me down. It's extremely beautifully shot. The music and sound editing are fucking chef's kiss incredible. It's directed and written by Emerald Fennell, who also was a showrunner for Killing Eve, which is one of my favorite shows that has come out in the last few years. She got a nod for Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. And other nominations for the film are for Best Actress, which Carey Mulligan completely deserves. Best Film Editing, which is also so fucking cool and well-deserved. It is worth a watch, especially and definitely if you are an affluent white person. And that's about it. I think that it is, I think it's important for that audience to see. It still was like very entertaining and impactful. So it's still like an incredible piece of art, and that cannot be taken away from it and should not be taken away from it at all. But yeah, it's odd, and it makes you, and I think it's good that it makes me feel so complex about it. That's pretty incredible for a piece of art to do that. So watch it. Let's talk about it. I'd love to keep talking about it. Yeah. Promising Young Woman. Next up is Nomadland. It is starring Frances McDormand as Fern, a woman who leaves her hometown of Empire, Nevada, after her husband dies and the soul industry closes down, causing her to also lose her job. And she then chooses to be houseless and travel around the United States in her van, joining the nomad community. And this was really beautifully told. And it shed a light on a community often seen in a disparaging way, like by people. And I also really loved that most of the people in the film were real-life nomads, just playing like fictionalized versions of themselves. My biggest criticism does have to do with that shining of the light, though. The film does little to highlight the societal and fundamental issues in our government that have led people to live minimalistically. You can find beauty in any situation you are struggling through, right? And home is not a place But only getting $500 a month from Social Security does limit your options of how you're going to live. And don't get me wrong, they bring it up briefly, but then we see the character having fun working a seasonal job at Amazon, which is a fucking nightmare factory. It left an uncomfortable knot in my stomach that I still haven't gotten over. It's so beautiful to look at and should feel more authentic to me. Of course, it's my opinion. Especially since it has the actors that they use. It should feel more authentic, but without speaking truth to power when you have the opportunity, what is the point? That's kind of like my big takeaway with this. It is so beautiful, but like, I don't know. I think even Chloe Zhao, who directed it and is nominated for Best Director and should be, I think, she even said that like ageism is seen in like every scene, but also like there's a beautiful sunset in front of it. Like kind of like pointing out also like, yeah, that is, I made this like really beautiful thing of this, of that tough dichotomy. Like I'm not saying that I could not make something better than this, but that is like the criticism that came out of it for me. But I think, watch it. It's on Hulu. You can stream it. And also Chloe Zhao her next film is a Marvel movie. So fucking hell yes, queen. Get your fucking bag. That's awesome. Like, no shade. It also got nominated for Best Actress for Frances McDormand, of course. For Frances McDormand, I'm sorry. McDormand. Best Cinematography and Best Film Editing. I think deserving on all fronts. The next nominee is Sound of Metal, which was my favorite film that I watched in 2020, which you might know. If you had already followed me on Instagram, I did like a most memorable films of 2020 list rather than like best of, because it's lame. But yeah, Sound of Metal is on my most memorable. I think it was the only one out of the nominees that was, because it was the only one that I had seen at that point. Oh my god. But yeah, it was my favorite that I watched in the year 2020. And so you can bet your fucking sweet ass I was stoked when it got nominated for Best Picture. It stars Riz Ahmed, who plays Ruben, a drummer in a metal duo with his girlfriend Lou, played by Olivia Cook, who's also a queen. Their band is named Black Gammon, which is fucking incredible. But yeah, it's about how he suddenly loses his hearing, and it's about him navigating his life without something he found to be an essential piece of who he was in so many ways. The sound design often puts you in Ruben's perspective, like simulating what he can and cannot hear. It's a deeply immersive experience. I think it's very incredible in a very similar way to The Father. And fuck, this film comes at you in like so many difficult ways. The majority of the cast are from the deaf community, and Riz spent 2 hours every day learning ASL, 2 hours in drum out lessons every day for 8 months straight before shooting. And this film has already been selected as part of the Criterion Collection. So you know your girl's gonna cop that Blu-ray in 2022. Okay, but yeah, but that's all a testament to like how significant and wonderful it is. It's also nominated for Best Actor for Riz, of course. Best Supporting Actor for Paul Raci, who is just stellar. He plays Ruben's deaf mentor, and Paul himself is the son of deaf parents. And he's just like everybody's loving uncle that just loves you more than you can love yourself. oh God, he's amazing. It's also nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and Best Sound, which is gonna have to fucking win. Oh my God, it has to fucking win Best Sound. Oh my God, what are you talking about? So yes, watch this one without a doubt. It's streaming on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime. If you do not have Amazon Prime, which is totally fucking fair, fuck Amazon. Rent it. It's just a few bucks. Okay. Or you can wait and buy it like me on Blu-ray or DVD from the Criterion Collection. Alright, next is the film I was looking most forward to watching all year last year, because the preview came out right before quarantine. It is the film Minari. It is written and directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and it's a semi-autobiographical story of his upbringing in the rural U.S. in the 80s. It's about a family of Korean immigrants who moved from California to start a farm in Arkansas. Sorry, I'm dumb. In Arkansas. They shot it in Oklahoma. But it takes place in Arkansas, where they try and start a farm selling Korean products to vendors in Texas. And it is so beautiful in every fucking way. Like, jeez. It's just so, it's very lovely about family and the connection and clashing of cultures within the characters and themselves and with the community, and how, like, they're able to find connection. Jesus. This is the only film in the Best Picture category that made me cry from love. Every piece of this had so much love in it. From the way it was shot, you could tell that there was just so much love thrown into every single element. And God, yeah. It's the one that got me, and it's like gonna get me thinking about it again. Okay, so it is nominated for Best Director and Original Screenplay because of fucking course, as well as Best Actor for Steven Yeun, who plays the father in the film, Best Supporting Actress for Yoon Yeon Jong, who plays the grandmother, and Best Original Score that will melt your entire fucking being. It is so beautiful. This is an absolute must-watch. I hope they give it another theatrical release because I so desperately want to see it on the big screen. Because I didn't get to. It didn't come to any theater around me. I did get to, like, watch it early because A24 did a screening, like, virtual screenings of it in the winter, and that was really cool, but it's still, I think you can get it on demand for, like, $20. I assume it'll probably drop after the Oscars happen, right? But get your money. It deserves the money. God. Yeah, call your parents. Tell them you love them. Okay. I think we're just down to a couple left. Yes, we are. Yeah, we're down to the last two, which are gonna be the doozies. And are the only ones in order for a reason. Okay, so first up, or, second to last, it's going to be The Trial of the Chicago 7. It is an ensemble movie with an ensemble cast. Oh, God, there are so many of them. Okay, there is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Sacha Baron Cohen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Michael Keaton, Frank Langella, John Carroll Lynch, Eddie Redmayne, Mark Rylance, Jeremy Strong, and Ben Shankman make up the ensemble cast. The film follows the Chicago 7, a group of anti-Vietnam War protesters charged with conspiracy and crossing state lines with the intention of inciting riots at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It's fast-paced and really engaging. It's obviously very relevant. Protesting has consistently been met with violence and legal action for the entire last year for me and lots of people I love. This is written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, who did The Social Network. For all of you who don't think you know who he is, you probably do. And it is really fucking similar to it, especially in structure. I enjoyed the film. I was entertained. I was moved. But quickly after it, and actually sitting and thinking it over, I think it abused the use of theatrics a bit too much. A glaring example would be the portrayal of Bobby Seals, the Black Panther defendant who in the film and real life was infamously bound and gagged in the courtroom, and in reality, he actually managed to repeatedly wiggle out of the physical restraints the government put on him, but in the film, it portrays the government as effectively silencing him. Which sucks. We also have the appearance of Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, played by Kevin Harrison Jr., who in the film appears to support and help Bobby Seale with legal advice and is ultimately murdered, but the film largely glosses over his significance. Karen Hahn put it really well, because I needed actual people to back me up on this, because I wanted this to be as well thought out and said, because it deserves to be. But Karen Hahn put it really well when she wrote of the film, recognition of the fact that the Black characters have been marginalized doesn't ultimately change the fact that they're on the sidelines. And in Adam Maynan's review for The Ringer, he accuses Sorkin of mobilizing Black suffering to trouble the conscience of the white characters. Writing, after placing his tragic, defiant African-American character on display so that we can shake our heads at his treatment, the director is free to return to the serio-comic bickering between the movie stars that he is his specialty. I don't know. I haven't fully realized my feelings. Well, maybe I kind of have, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Luckily, though, we got an entire film about Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party, also nominated for Best Picture, so I can talk more about that when I get to it. Trial of the Chicago 7 also received nominations for Best Supporting Actor for Sacha Baron Cohen, who is the breakout star of the film, without a doubt. He was amazing. Original screenplay, cinematography, original song, which is... I had to look it up too. I didn't know there was a fucking original song in this film. It's played during the credits. It's about standing up and stuff, you know? It's I think there are 4 out of 5 of the best of the original songs are about standing up, you know, and making yourself heard and stuff. Which I appreciate that sentiment. Obviously, that is very relevant right now, but it's too generic. This one is way too generic. We need more specifics. Yeah, that's my opinion. Okay. Also nominated for Best Film Editing. So yeah, overall, I think it's a great watch, honestly. Just because I have critiques doesn't mean that it's not great. And it's about a really important historic trial that is uncomfortably relevant today. And we should always be looking back at history and learning and being better. But she ain't the strongest contender. But maybe that's just from being an ensemble cast. Maybe that's just an inevitability when you have an ensemble film. It seems kind of maybe it is. I don't know. Okay. All right. Let's bring it on home. Okay. So naturally, the final and next film that I would talk about is going to be Judas and the Black Messiah, starring Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party in the late 1960s Chicago. I mentioned him. And Lakeith Stanfield as William O'Neill, who is an FBI informant who gained Hampton's trust which ultimately led to Hampton's and several party members' murder in a police raid. While Hampton is a small character in Sorkin's film, he's front and center in Judas and the Black Messiah, which is like so odd, right? That's so weird these films came out like that, but it's neat. I think it's cool, especially putting them together. I like it. The good thing is, these men are not portrayed as archetypes or caricatures as the title might lead you to believe they would be. Judas and the Black Messiah. They are deeply realized and complex people, often in impossibly difficult situations. Hampton is extremely charismatic and mesmerizing when he is speaking in front of his massive crowds, but then he is a real fucking person who is so shy and nervous when he's like meeting his future fiance. No one is one thing. And I love that that is true in this work of art. Dominique Fishback, who plays Deborah Johnson, Hampton's fiance, is the strongest actor on screen, in my opinion. Everyone is absolutely incredible. But her depth and the way she was able to deliver an emotional monologue without even saying a fucking word in shots, man. She was breathtaking. Every woman in this film is just so fucking powerful. The way they are framed and shot, whether they are major characters or in the background, just power, and it is fucking lovely. Then, of course, we have O'Neill, who could easily just be seen as a villain. The man who sold out his friend, his brother, his fucking kin, and led him to be murdered. But he's never portrayed as that evil villain. He's a man who is being used, desperate to be seen as a human, but trapped by the FBI, who will never see him as a human. Just a tool for their plan. It's fucking chilling. Shaka King directed and co-wrote the script with Will Benson based on the story idea from the two in collaboration with the Lucas brothers, who are some of my favorite comedians on the planet. And when I found out, while doing research for this episode, that they were involved, I fucking audibly gasped. Like, look up the fucking Lucas. You might even know who they are. They're amazing. But yeah. It breaks my heart that the corruption and literal terrorizing and massacre the police and government agencies commit on the Black community, that is just trying to fight for their rights to live, is still completely relevant to us. There are scenes of protests and gatherings with phrases and faces even that I have screamed in the streets saying and that I can see, and having known leaders in my community that have been murdered in the last year, it was definitely too much for me to watch on my own. Which I did. And it took a long time for me to recover and be able to talk about the film. Shit, I saw it months ago at this point. And this is the first time I have talked about it extensively. And I am very emotional and very, warm. But, yeah. It's incredible. And it should win. It's my pick. That's my pick. That might be what you were waiting for the whole time. It's my pick for Best Picture. I don't think it's gonna win. I want it to really bad. But, this tends to happen. Last year, Parasite was my favorite and it did win. So maybe I'll keep a little hope in my heart. But I don't know. But yeah, that's it. Those are the nominees and my opinions on them. I'd recommend watching most of them, which is honestly usually not the case. So hey, I think things are getting better, but definitely not at the pace we would all like them to. Let's kick it up, the Academy. Let me know what you think should win. What should have been nominated instead? Defy Blood should have been fucking nominated. What the fuck? I have more opinions, but I'd love to chat with you about them and hear yours. Anyway, I've been your friendly neighborhood fat friend, Allie. I'm probably gonna take a little movie break because I'm fucking burnt out, but I will be back soon with the regular pod. I love you so very much. Genuinely, I fucking love you so much. And I hope you're taking care of yourself in whatever way that looks, in whatever way you need. Take care of yourself. I'll talk at you next time. Okay, bye.